Good evening and a very warm welcome to all who have joined us live on YouTube for the fourth and final session of our knowledge series, Building India's Futuristic School Vision 2025, the Hyderabad edition. My name is Prachi Mishra and I'm a senior research analyst at QS IGAUGE, India's first school and higher education rating system. For those of you who are joining the series live today for the first time, this roundtable series with school principals, directors, and CEOs has been curated to focus specifically on how Indian schools are preparing to turn various challenges into opportunities so that they can become the best and world class institutions. In these discussions, we uncover views of educationists on various aspects of school leadership that will help in making India's schools and its students future ready. Another highlight of these series is the research report that will be published by QSI Gauge, capturing all the insights from these discussions. We have had three very engaging discussions with education leaders in the Bangalore, Delhi NCR, and Maharashtra editions, and today we bring to you an esteemed panel from the city of Hyderabad. So, without any further delay, let us begin the session by bringing our panel on board. I invite our very first panelist, Ms. Nancy Sanderson Schwartz, head of Srinidhi International School, Hyderabad. Ms. Nancy served as an IB educator and international head of school for 9 IB World Schools in 7 countries before joining Srinidhi in 2018 and has led the school through world's most stringent requirements along with introducing and overseeing extensive professional development of faculty. And as a future-focused educator, she continues to monitor the international school milieu to identify changes that contribute to excellence in education. A very warm welcome to you, Nancy, ma'am.
Thank you. And then I appreciate being invited to this show.
Thank you. Our next panelist is Ms. Ruchira Ghosh, Principal of Santa Maria International School, Hyderabad. She also headed the South Asia region of the Cambridge Assessment International Education as the regional director, and under her leadership, the number of Cambridge schools in India doubled from under 250 to 500. She has also worked with the British Council for over 11 years. Ms. Ruchira aims to apply her own learning from her Cambridge and British Council experiences to build a world-class institution that prepares students for life and as lifelong learners. Welcome, Ruchira ma'am.
Thank you so much, and it's a pleasure to be among such eminent educationists.
Thank you, ma'am. I now invite Ms. Hema Chenupati, Principal of Oak Ridge International School, Hyderabad. Ms. Hema has been part of the Oak Ridge family since its very inception and has been instrumental in introducing and facilitating many innovative and unique programs for students that would contribute to their overall growth. She believes that effective learning happens outside the classroom, and for her, children are the crux of the social system, and the way they evolve is the way that the society will evolve and develop. Welcome, Hema ma'am.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to be here.
Next, I would like to invite Ms. Koyal Ray, Principal Senior School at Aga Khan Academy, Hyderabad. Ms. Koyal has held various leadership positions in the IB Middle Year program. She has enriched these positions with her specialization in concept and inquiry-based learning with a focus on skills and values. As an educator, she aims to help students to develop an understanding of themselves and others in relation to the world and aspires towards creating a learning environment that inculcates the awareness of global citizenship. Welcome, Koyal ma'am.
Thank you. Pleasure to be here with all of you. Looking forward to the session.
Thank you, and it's a pleasure to have all of you on this panel today with us. So we begin right away with something that has been a key part of our knowledge series. That is the insights or the learnings from the last year that we have all experienced. So we will start this panel discussion by hearing from all of you on what is your key learning or takeaway from the last 1 year that we've had. So Nancy ma'am, we can start with you and then go around the panel.
This has been a year when our teachers have gone above and beyond They were called to the fore last March. We had done a lot of pre-planning beforehand, foreseeing that schools in India might close. However, they closed much earlier than we expected, and our teachers were thrown into undertaking the largest education of their lifetime as they gained competence with technology, with learning platforms, with apps, and they learned how to change their delivery of programs to better engage their students who are now living in a virtual world, some of them with the videos turned off due to network issues. The teachers came along beautifully, and the students seemed to adapt quite nicely. We had to work on our program over the period of 2 or 3 months in order to perfect how that learning was going on based upon the age level of the students. But we received good accolades from our parents, and away we went on our merry way. And then in October, we were told that some of our students could, on a drop-in basis, come into schools on a regular basis. And did they ever? So our MYP4 to DP2 students, some of them returned in October, and all of them have returned in the last week since schools were allowed to reopen. What have we learned? Well, we have learned from our students in the last week and a half that they much prefer being at school than learning virtually. So good news is the job of the teacher is not going to disappear. They've also told us that what they find really valuable about the in-person learning experience at school is the ability to socialize and the ability to collaborate with other students. Our teachers have told us that the synchronous learning that goes on in our classrooms allows them to be able to observe the learning in their students, to formatively assess where their students are, and to provide immediate feedback. This was something that they missed out on virtual learning. They could provide assessments, but they weren't those in casual assessments of where the students were going or where they needed to go next in order to learn at their best level. One of the things we have realized is that due to the global challenges the world faces today, environmental, political, social, and economic, teachers today need to be prepared to deliver education in both formats, both in person and virtual, and teacher education programs need to adapt to this immediately. On top of that, living in a high-tech city, the city who builds itself as a high-tech city, I was amazed at the number of students who didn't have access to a computer in their own home. They could not get online with their teachers. I mean, most of these students were coming, it is true, from the public schools, but still that makes up the majority of students. In Hyderabad, international schools only cater to those who would like to pay a lot of money to hopefully get their kids into universities overseas. For the average student in Hyderabad, with this being a high-tech city, why do not all students have access to computer access in their homes and to networks, so that should another calamity strike, whatever that might be, and students have to go to a virtual learning environment, they actually have the tools in place to do that. There was no reason why, given the wealth of this city and certainly the focus that it has on high tech, that it wouldn't have thought to educate each and every student in digital technologies and digital literacy right from the get-go. Again, what we've learned is there will always be the need for teachers. There will always be the need for physical schools. Our students need to come together. They need to be together. They need to collaborate, and they need to work in groups and individually in order to learn at their best level. Now, we can simulate some of those through chat rooms and through breakout rooms online, but again, it's just not the same. A lot is lost in translation as teachers attempt to navigate between the various breakout rooms and try to keep track of the chat, which goes on endlessly as they are trying to deliver a lesson. So having students in class allows them to immediately clear their doubts by asking questions and getting the feedback from their teachers. There's also that personal relationship, that relationship building that goes on between teacher and students that is ever so valuable to develop the students' emotional, social, and mental health. Well-being has become a major job of our teachers, something that they probably weren't trained to do, but they certainly have had to be trained to do over the last 10 months. And working with students online, students who are sometimes isolated in their homes, disconnected from family and friends that are not living with them, they have had major problems. Certainly the fear factor that we've seen in students is tremendous. And it's unfortunate I have grandchildren in Canada that have gone to school since last June. They're young children, they're 12 and under, but kids don't get COVID. And if they do, they're mild symptoms like a cold. There's no reason to keep kids at home, young children at home. And so, you know, my grandkids have gone off to school every day wearing a mask, and they know about social distancing, and off they go on their merry way. So they haven't had that fear factor or that isolation factor that we are seeing in our returning students now. These are some of the things we've learned and some of the things that we need to look at as we're future focused.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing those insights. And definitely we have learned that teachers are here to stay and schools are here to stay. There's no way we can substitute all the digital content that is out there with the school or with the teacher. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts, Nancy ma'am. Ruchira ma'am, we'd like to hear from you now.
Thanks, Prachi. I could easily say ditto to what Nancy said, and I could just pass to the next speaker because all of us will certainly have a lot of shared learning experiences. But I'll try to sum up ours in 5 specific points. I think, firstly, again, as Nancy said, the human connections can never be replaced by technology, and that has been amply clear. So our teachers have adapted to technology, our students have adapted to technology, but I think that power of human connection is what has driven us to succeed despite these challenges. And I think this will remain at the heart of education. So again, it's very reassuring. And therefore, it also, there is that conviction that if we invest in our people, that is the biggest investment that we can make as a school. Of course, we need to invest in better infrastructure, technology, and all of that. But I think investment in people is going to be the most crucial thing even in future. Secondly, I think we have the choice to see the glass as half empty or half full. And again, in these times particularly, I think the way we have also grabbed opportunities to do things differently, to use the power of technology, to build relationships in a very different way, has been a huge learning as a school. Thirdly, I think the value of collaboration with parent community. We know that whenever we conduct physical events, the turnout of the parents can be, it can vary. But the fact that we've been able to see parents much more during these times, connect with them, build those relationships, take their feedback, I think we can never underestimate the power of the parent community. I know we all have our own challenges at times when we have to face a lot of difficult questions and concerns, but I guess that's our job, to take things in stride and continue building that relationship. The fourth thing I feel is, again, something that Nancy already mentioned, that we can learn a lot about resilience from our own students. The way they have adapted to the way they learn and the way they live during these times is something we can all learn from. And I think human species is resilient by nature, but sometimes when push comes to shove, we are able to really demonstrate our survival instincts. Finally, I'll say that as educators and as people in this profession, we can never stop learning. So it may be the pandemic this year, it might be other things coming up for us. I think we can never give up on learning. So that is, again, something which is here for stay. So I think that's how I would sum up the learnings that we've had from this year.
Thank you so much, ma'am. You really, very briefly and in a very concise manner, you've summed it up together as to what could be some of the very commonly experienced features of the last 1 year for everybody, not just specific to education, but anybody who has been trying to continue pushing through online collaborations or reaching out to people who you usually would not interact with so much. So yes, resilience and understanding the parent community better is something that has really stood out for a lot of institutions. Hema ma'am, your views on key learnings from the last 1 year?
Yeah, I think both of them have summed up and covered a lot of the points. So probably mine would sound a little repetitive, but the things that I would like to highlight, of course, is that the fact that yes, students have adapted really well to the situation, and there's a lot of inspiration that we got from them. From day one, it was okay. We are going to school yesterday. Today we are not, and then they go on, and then just manage things so beautifully and made it so easy for us. The teachers took a while, the training, the coaching that we had to do for them, but I think. Thankfully for us, since technology was a part of our curriculum in terms of our tools that we introduced, it was much easier for us to move from the physical to the virtual pretty fast. And of course, the assessments were a concern, but we over a period of few months or few weeks actually got around that and managed that as well. The second, of course, was something that Nancy did touch upon, but was a very, very important part for us to focus on, was the well-being of students. Our student counselors played a huge part in helping not just the students, the staff, but also the parents. There were so many sessions that we had to do for parents. We reached out to outside counselors as well, did major counseling sessions for all of them, webinars, parenting, connecting with and opening up a platform for them where they could reach out to us. This helped us in, coming, basically the bond between the parents, students, teachers were really, really established after this. I think all the concerns over all the other minor issues were just swept away, and the focus was on let's all fight this pandemic together. I think that was a beautiful lesson that all of us learned, that if we are all together, we can achieve and we can conquer all. And of course, the third lesson was, of course, that technology is here to stay. I think we have to learn to live with it now. It's part of our everyday life. For us who were very reluctant adapters of it, and to the digital natives, of course, our students, it's been part of our life now. We've been staring at the laptop for a year, for months now, feels like years. But it's just that earlier morning we get up, have a cup of coffee, get ready, go to school. Now get ready, open the laptop and sit there. So it's been tough. It's been a very inhuman in a lot of ways, because we see, we know they're there, but we cannot meet them. And the energy that we get from meeting each other, which we have now realized the past few weeks, well, since our students have started coming to school, is very, very different, and we cannot do away with that. So going forward, we feel that the blended mode or the hybrid mode are some of the things that we will have to learn to live with. Yes, and the pandemic has also given us a lot of new vocabulary, I guess. So the social distancing, the social bubbles. On a lighter note, of course, but these are things that we never thought we would ever be using, but we've got that have become part of our life as well. So yeah.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. You brought out some very important points, especially in the context of well-being and mental health. So I'll be covering that in one of the questions as well. But yes, of course, technology is something that a lot of us have been reluctant to embrace. But the last few months have taught us that there's no way of keeping away from it. And even if the pandemic goes on and it gets over, we still will use the technology a lot more than we were using before, because we've understood the kind of collaborations that we can do, and especially the people we were not able to reach out to very frequently in the past. We've understood that it is possible, even though it can't be face to face all the time, but there is no need to hold on to certain things we want to do just because we can't reach out to that person. So thank you so much for your views, ma'am. Koil, ma'am, we'd like to hear what your learnings have been.
It was lovely listening to all of you, and the disadvantage of being the last speaker is that most of your points are covered. So I'll try my best to add something new. But I would sort of, jot down my learnings in four important points. So the first thing the biggest takeaway is the style of leadership. Um, I've been listening to some TED Talks on leadership, and there's one very interesting one by Amy Edmondson, and she says that the traditional qualities that you associated with leadership is a leader who knows everything, a leader who's armed with data and with experience. But I think that whole concept of leadership has completely changed, and I think the qualities of leadership that we would now stress is one of courage, humility, and she says a leader who has a social compass. So sustainability, social purpose, and equality, I think, makes what is good leadership today. And this is what is the takeaway from my experience in my school. Uh, our head of academy, Dr. Jonathan Long, is a very inspirational speaker, and he would constantly motivate us through this crisis. He would constantly send out his video messages to us, to the students, and help us see that leadership is increasingly becoming inclusive. It's no longer hierarchical. So the role that the teachers have played is amazing. I mean, we would have never made it through, or we are still through it, but the teachers have played such an important role. I completely agree with the speakers. The issue of mentoring. The teacher is now a mentor. I mean, you have to be a good mentor. It's no longer enough to just know your subjects. And again, strangely, this is something that is not new. It's always been there. But I think under the present circumstances, we have been now convinced about it, that you need to have that mentoring ability in you. And the other takeaway is learner agency. And when I say learner agency, I just don't mean learners as in students, but we've all been learners in this pandemic. We've all had to unlearn and relearn. So I think learner agency, the fact that we are not constantly being micromanaged, but we are free. We have that intellectual freedom, redesigning the curriculum, in a completely different way, where you focus on skills, you focus on global engagement, and you try to make your students see that, look, this is knowledge is holistic. You are at home sitting in front of your laptops, but look around the world and what's happening, and you are a part of that that struggle. So I think education has become very global, and that's another takeaway. And the other mentors have also mentioned that the role that social and emotional learning has played. So when I said we redesigned the curriculum, we had it in our planning, but I think we were more convinced under the circumstances that this is something that we really must carry on, even when we, overcome this pandemic state. So we introduced a curriculum we call the LEAP, which is Leadership Ethics Awareness Program, where we would deal with goal setting issues, time management, stress related issues. And another big takeaway, I think, is collaboration among teachers, collaboration across the network. We've realized that we can't be in our silos. And, this very session, I was so eager to join. I was so interested in knowing what each and every school in Hyderabad wanted to share. So I think that collaboration has been a big part of our journey. And yes, so we have collaboration across the network and various groups, various platforms, and that has helped us with a lot of good practices and a lot of good ideas. So yes, that's how I would sum up my learning.
Yeah, so even you say you are the last and you didn't have much points, but you brought out something very important, which is the role of a good leader in times of a crisis. So all of you are educational leaders here, and we know how difficult and challenging it was for everybody to make sure that everybody in the community is able to overcome their own inhibitions, stay motivated, and you yourself being motivated enough to lead everyone towards this transition, which was not easy at all. So yes, leadership qualities have been tested in these last few months and in the future as well. So because this discussion is about building a futuristic school, it will depend a lot on the leaders and how they are ready to steer their students and staff into developing a futuristic institution. And of course, collaboration and well-being, all of those aspects are crucial. But if the leadership is not that futuristic in its vision, then none of these can be achieved. So thank you so much for sharing your thoughts on that. And I'll move on to the specific questions that I have for all of you. And I'll take on from Koel ma'am's point on collaboration, and I take this question to Nancy ma'am on global collaborations playing a key role in the futuristic vision of a school. And especially international schools have that mandate, but for any school to achieve those global benchmarks, we need to have more openness towards such collaborations and understand the role and the kind of value that these collaborations can bring to the institution. So I'd like to know from you, Nancy ma'am, that what are your thoughts on schools enhancing their efforts towards such endeavors, especially for schools that are not used to such global collaborations. And we know that it is possible, especially during the pandemic, we've understood that it doesn't have to be a physical presence to an international institution or to any global institution for that matter.
Correct. And one of the things we have discovered, certainly as our staff and myself have been involved in absolutely a multitude of webinars, conferences, workshops, is we have joined a lot of networks and we've connected with people in order to reach out and find out what other people are doing. And in the process, we found like-minded schools, but we've also founded schools that are doing things very differently, and we've decided to investigate them because they might have best practices that we don't know anything about yet, and we'd like to know what those are. So we have been reaching out, our teachers individually and certainly across the median, but we always find when we're reaching out to a school that we want to do it with a more formal format so that we all understand what it is, the purpose of our collaborative venture is going to be. And if we're going to have an exchange between students of ideas, then we want to have learning goals, of course, all those good things that educators talk about. And we also want to encourage our students to maintain that relationship, that long-term relationship with students in their partner schools. We've looked to this as a learning experience, and certainly I know myself and my teachers have participated in quite a few online requests for surveys and data concerning what is going on during the school shutdown period and what are our practices. And of course, what they're trying to do is calculate what are the best practices and what are going to work in certain situations and what are going to work in other situations. So we've done a lot of sharing, but we've also done a lot of collecting in that collaboration and processing and really discussing what it is that we can take away. Listening during those times, listening to what other schools have to say, and making sure that you value other schools. No one school is better than another school. Every educator has at their core the wish that they provide their students with the very best education possible. So value schools. Some schools are well equipped with great facilities and we've got a beautiful 60-acre campus here, but not all schools are that fortunate. That doesn't mean that the educators at those schools aren't delivering just as high quality education in their programs as we are here, in whatever language they are, in whatever country that they are situated in, and whatever their culture is. We've done a lot of learning through this, and we hope to maintain these relationships now that our students are back at school. Sometimes maybe the time that it takes to nurture and continue to build those strong relationships, teachers might find that it impedes upon the time that they think that they're supposed to be teaching students. We don't want them to think that. We want our teachers to be involved in international mindedness and be the role models for their students to show that by reaching out, by learning, by listening, by contributing, and by respecting others' views and viewpoints and ways of knowing and doing, we are actually strengthening our students to become the global citizens that we want them to be, the internationally minded global citizen. That is our vision for our school, and certainly it is something that we've been able to augment over the last 10 months through our virtual learning and virtual learning of our teachers as well, and our outreach programs.
Thank you, Nancy ma'am. So you pointed out that the openness to learn from another institution is something that is very crucial in having any global collaboration, because if we go with a fixed mindset that maybe we are doing better or we are not open to accepting feedback or implementing something which we might be able to customize to our own context and have some benefits out of it, even the global collaborations would not work out. So the ability to listen, to absorb, and to implement along with that sharing is something that is definitely important in any global collaboration. So I'll take that point forward and I'll pose the next question to Koil ma'am, because this is about sustainable development goals. Because when we talk of global collaborations, SDGs are something that we have been talking about, but the implementation has been a challenge. And the sooner we start, the better, because the school children, if they are exposed to SDGs and they are made to understand what they are and how can they be a part of it, it will definitely have a much more profound impact. So I'd like to know from you, Koel ma'am, that in your institution, how are you planning to achieve this integration with SDGs in the futuristic schooling vision that you have?
Yes. Yes. So I would just like to give a little background. So our school is actually part of what we call the Aga Khan network. So the Aga Khan network already works for the SDGs. The Aga Khan Foundation has done a lot of work on the SDGs. So irrespective of what the situation is, we have given a lot of focus on the SDGs right from the beginning through our humanities curriculum. But during the pandemic, what the change that we've brought in is that we have created a component in the curriculum which is called global engagement. So we are addressing the SDGs more, in more depth through that curriculum that is designed for MYPs from 6 to 10. So we are trying to create awareness about the SDGs through the global engagement curriculum because we found that the students have to be interconnected with what's going on around them. So they have to see the SDGs as part of what is actually going on and how I can address it. So we built a curriculum itself, and we've we have a protected time within the schedule where the teachers actually teach the SDGs through the global engagement program. Yes, other than it being addressed through the humanities curriculum more directly. Yes.
Yeah, so mainstreaming it in the curriculum is, I think, one of the most effective ways that we
Yes.
can integrate SDGs into the school education domain as well. And having that humanistic approach is also something which is very important as a part of the SDGs, and accepting and valuing the human life. So, with this, I move on to the next question that I have, which is about the well being of the students. So, I would like to ask Ruchira ma'am this question, that what are some of the best practices that school leaders you think can implement to promote and develop a positive mental health and well-being, especially for staff and students? And we've had sessions on counseling and all of those things, but it's still not considered a very key element when we think of well-being. So, what are some of the recommendations that you have for school leaders?
Well, Prachi, I can share how we have looked at this area, and especially this year. And I think, again, when we started the conversation, perhaps Nancy mentioned that this was something, social and emotional well being was something that we were already thinking about and working towards, but it just became so important during these times. So I think what we also did was that we were looking at a formal social and emotional learning curriculum. So we were looking at what's available out there and how we can begin to implement it within our curriculum. But certainly in these times, we decided that we're going to mainstream it in the timetable, in the curriculum. So we've actually had something called self lessons. I think Koel was speaking about LEAP program. So I was just thinking about, how all of us have created a program within our curriculum to ensure. So for us, self is social emotional learning and future, because we integrated well-being along with students looking at their future as well. So right from primary up to high school, we've had specific lessons, and we involved our psychologist as well as the psychology teacher to deliver these lessons. So they have focused on areas like self-understanding, interpersonal relationships, managing emotions. So even things like just naming the emotion correctly makes a whole lot of a difference to how we respond to the situation. So starting from something like that, But I think we understand the importance of having something like this as part of the curriculum itself, and not just going ahead with the traditional subjects. So we know that we will continue with the self curriculum even in future years. But I think the other ways in which we tried to ensure that the students and staff feel comfortable. So I'm going to talk about staff first in terms of our teachers, because they've been the pillars of, holding through this whole difficult period. So I think, what we realized is that sometimes just listening to our own teachers and responding to their issues compassionately makes a whole lot of difference. You don't need to create special events or programs, but just when we say a simple thank you, or we say that, yes, I understand you're going through this, and how can I support you in going through it? It makes a lot of difference. So beginning with that, and then moving on to doing check-ins with teachers regularly. So within each division, we've had our colleagues, talking to teachers and trying to understand how they are doing through the period. Then looking at creating those opportunities for celebrations and special events as well, because I think it's been tireless going through this entire period of coping with technology, coping with new ways of working, not seeing the kids, not coming to school. So having some time for relaxation, doing yoga sessions together, creating some opportunities for celebrating, that has helped to, at least re-energize and further strengthen the bonds with teachers. Then also about being flexible when the situation required it, because our teachers also have their own kids who are studying and doing their online classes. There have been no maids coming to home, so the entire lifestyle has changed over this year. So acknowledging that all of this situation exists, and still we expect our teachers to do their best for the students. We've really been more flexible than perhaps we would have thought about in regular times. And then finally, I think it's important to appreciate and recognize teachers with or without a pandemic situation. So I think we've made efforts to acknowledge them publicly and create opportunities for teachers to share and appreciate best practices within the school. I think for students, what we also did was that we created special sessions with the counselors. So every day we've had something called Student Lounge, where the counselors have met the students who required special help, and teachers have been able to give extra attention to students who weren't able to cope with the online classes. And I think a huge impact, I would say, both positively and negatively in different ways, has been on children with special needs. So some of the students have really coped well, working from home, being in that safety of their home environment. And some students and parents have found it challenging to deal with specific issues. So I think putting that extra impetus to work with and support children with special needs has been, again, another focus during these times. So yeah, I think those are some of the practices that we put in place. And I mean, we're very sure that we don't want to let go of any of those in future as well.
Yeah, thank you, ma'am. Because you rightly pointed out, it's also about the kind of culture that the institution has. Because if it's just a a mention of just a very formal which is not translating into the day-to-day work ethics and the work culture, then it's really not going to have that kind of an impact on well-being of the staff and students. So making it part of the institution's culture to have that empathy and the understanding of reaching out to a person and trying to understand what they're going through is something that is very important. And it was also one of the other questions that I had for today's session, which was about addressing challenges of students with special needs. So you've already covered on that aspect that it needs definitely needs special attention or certain specified interventions to ensure that when everyone is not at the same level of learning, there are measures or interventions to ensure that the school is taking steps towards that. But on that note itself, if any of you right now has any other inputs for differently able students or students with special needs, on any other interventions that you've implemented or you've tried to bring forth in the online teaching mode. I would like to hear from you before I move on to the next question, which is for Hima ma'am. So any of you on the panel can actually, if you have any, otherwise we can come back to that later as well.
Yeah, I think
Yes.
inclusion, yeah, if I can just mention, sorry. Yeah, so inclusion was a very important aspect that we early on caught on to, because we felt that in a situation like this where we are all scrambling to put things together, these are the special need kids students would be the ones who would, probably not get enough of our attention or focus. So of course, we have them identified. We had them in our system. We knew had a plan for them. We were working with them. There was continuous feedback being given and feedback taken and collaboration happening with the parents as well. So we, of course, formed a committee to ensure that this did not get neglected, and that we actually paid extra attention to them and collaborated big time with the parents to ensure that we understood what the new challenges would be with these children at home and how we can support them. Of course, we had to take a lot of help from parents in this case, because I think it had to be, now they were all at home and we were all separated by, so we had to coach and train the parents also quite a bit with the skills. So we would get on, so there would be sessions on Saturdays for all of these parents, and then we would then pick it up and then take it on. But I think there was a lot of learning there as well, and a lot of things that we had to improvise as we went along, because this is not something that we thought we would be able to handle. But thankfully for us, we were able to. The parents are now especially thankful to the school for having supported their kids during this difficult time.
Koel ma'am, you also had something about this? Yeah,
Yes, we have a program for addressing special needs, which we call the Learning Enrichment Program. So we have our specialist teachers actually supporting students with special needs, and special needs as in not just I don't mean I also mean students who are need more challenges as well. So, it's general academic skills support, developing English language skills, then students who have from mild to moderate learning difficulties, boosting language skills for advanced English learners. So what we did was we restructured the timetable where we created two spaces called Flex 1 and Flex 2. So flexible time 1 and flexible time 2, when these students could actually meet with the learning enrichment teachers and get support. So we found that very helpful under a school lockdown situation. And I think Hema covered. We did similar things, like we would send reports back to the parents on every one of those child. So the learning enrichment team was constantly in touch with parents. But what they also did, and which made really a difference, was they constantly also had PD sessions for the teachers, helping the teachers to support them better. And that we saw made a lot of difference. So a learning hub was set up. And if I am a teacher as well, so if I want to know something, I'm struggling with a student with special needs, I just have to go on to the learning hub, and there are various suggestions and various ways in which I can go about my lesson planning and so on. So I think that really made a difference. So yeah.
Thank you, Hima ma'am and Koel ma'am. So, uh, another question that I had for Hima ma'am was, especially the kindergarten students, they're still not back to the school, and it will be a while before they are back. So there are bound to be some difficulties in that transition, because a lot of them, for them, the first learning experience was this online schooling which started. And how are you planning to address that transition for these very young students who will be actually entering a school space for the first time?
Yeah, so we had parents now reaching out to us saying that we enrolled and we haven't seen the school and we are also winding up for the year. How does this work? We had, of course, visions of getting them back on campus for maybe a small picnic or some connect. We've had teachers breaking down in class because they say ki, our strength, our energy comes from the little ones, and we are not able to see them. Though there is a no touch policy, we know how it works in the kindergarten and the early years. It's been extremely challenging, not just for the teachers, for the school, but also for the parents, because I think a whole lot of parents, and especially in the initial stages, reached out to us with lots of concerns that they have their work, they have to support their young kids, logging in online, and then the screen time. Till just before the lockdown, we were sending out emails and through our weekly transactions saying that please do not let the children sit in front of the laptop or the TV or the iPad for more than this much time. And within a few weeks or maybe a days, we were then saying, please log on at this time, and this time we have to do this, we have to do that. So that really was a big challenge, and we had to then obviously educate and very systematically get the kids understand what is expected from them, let the parents understand what's expected from them, support our teachers, train them, coach them, mentor them as well. So that took a bit of our time, but I think the bigger challenge would now be, so over a period of time the children got adjusted, acclimatized, became pros with it. They now know switching on, switching off, everything. I mean, they're absolute pros out there. And they're doing assemblies online and quoting and enacting, telling stories, But the thing again, we realized, and this we started working from December itself, was on getting them back onto campus and what are the challenges we would face. So we had a steering committee set up for that, which included counselors, big part, parents as well. We have our parent support group. So we got them in because we need to understand their point of view as well. So we call them the Oak Parent Partners. And we have a committee with representative from each segment and grade and sections. And they, together with all of them, we've listed out all the things that they felt were going well, may need support, may be a challenge when they come back, and we've now started building a plan with that. In fact, as encouraged by our international partners, of course, NODA India as well, they have a big group of people who are helping us with early years as well. So early years was the biggest challenge for us, and we spent a lot of time and energy working with them and collaborating with them to put a system in place. And we now realize that once this document is in place, we would love to share it with everyone, because there's a lot of time and energy being spent on that. So I'm sure that would be useful. We will definitely reach out to others as well to understand how they are planning to do as well. Right.
Thank you for sharing your some of your best practices, ma'am. So we have almost come to the end of the session, and before we conclude it, I would like to hear from all of you on what is your vision of the school education landscape for the future, and what should be the key focus area according to you for the school leaders. So we can start with Nancy ma'am and then go around the panel. Ma'am, you have to unmute yourself.
As I mentioned to begin with, social emotional learning has become very large on the landscape, as it has for many of the schools, and we are not alone in that. We have a learning support team for our unique learners, and however that is defined, providing that individual or small group support is absolutely key moving forward. In the next 5 years, I can see that there will be a lot more outreach with other schools worldwide, and student with a lot of our students as well. We've always had a focus on the Sustainable Development Goals, and we will continue with that through our problem-based learning that all of our students are involved in. We have a very agentic learning here at school, where students really do have choice and ownership of their learning. And through their PBLs, they can choose which of the Sustainable Development Goals they want to investigate, and then they tie in the subject learning into that to make it very interdisciplinary. That will expand even more because we live in an interdisciplinary world. And unfortunately, we continue with these silos that really don't serve our students well. They don't really solve the problems that the world is facing. And it is really going to be up to those students probably to solve a lot of those problems as we go forward in time. So we best start preparing them now. We certainly look for our students' mental health. Their physical health is one of the things we are now concerned about as well, because many of them have been cooped up, and certainly their physical fitness levels for the ones who have returned, we've done some measurements on them, and guess what? And I must admit, I'm in there too. My physical fitness level certainly isn't where it was a year ago. So please put the water back in the pool so I can get to swimming every day. These are some of the things that we need to look at, and we need to really help our students understand that regardless of what the future throws at them, we must empower them to be risk takers. We must empower them to take a chance and figure out, work through it, figure out what you can do to get around whatever you're being thrown at, whatever is being thrown at you. So throughout this pandemic, our school put together its annual day production in real time, in video format, and presented it with a live screening as well as online on YouTube, with every single bit that you would normally see, dance and music and little children being really cute. It was a great production, student written, student produced, student led, student acted. It was a risk taking event, but we had to put ourselves out there and try this in order to see it work. We need our students to understand, don't let the world tackle you and define where you're going. You have to take hold of that and find where you're going. Those IB learner profile attributes that IB schools really try to inculcate with their students are so important. That is being caring, being empathetic. It is also about being balanced, and it is about thinking and being knowledgeable, but being a risk taker to try to put everything into practice. I see us working on that over the next 5 years, and of course, now that we're on a much higher level for our technologies, we will look for our technologies and better technologies as tools to implement. But technology is a tool. It is not the means by which. It is simply a tool, and it's one that provides many platforms for us to deliver the very best education, to not achieve academic excellence, but to allow every child to achieve their very best. And that is our goal. I'm sure it's the goal probably of all my other fellow heads here. We want the best for our students. And we believe that all teachers, it's kind of a thankless job. That's why they go into this profession. They want the best for their students. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Nancy ma'am. Those were some really futuristic points that you brought out, especially when it comes to collaboration, academic freedom, which usually is not associated so much with school education because there's a curriculum, there's a structure to be followed, one grade to another grade. So those are some of the inhibitions or limitations that we need to break to have a futuristic school. Thank you so much. Ruchita ma'am, your vision and your recommendation to school leaders.
I think I am going to echo some of the points and repeat them, perhaps in a different way. But it's a great thing that all of us are on the same page and believe similar things. So the future definitely looks like it's not too far away. So I think the first thing that I think about is really this whole idea of personalized and tailored learning experiences, because all of us have been talking about implementing to a certain extent things like differentiation in our own ways. But I think, again, this year has really given us opportunities as well as specific reasons to try and make that a reality. So I think the future of education has to move towards more tailored learning experiences for students, because one size does not fit all. It is not something which is new knowledge, but it's just that I think it has the reality has really hit us now that we need to cater to the needs of every single child. I think the role of the teacher, at least all the conferences that I used to attend in previous times, we used to hear about from being a sage on the stage to being a guide on the side. I think from guide on the side, now the teachers have to become co-learners with their own learners. So I think that's going to be a new change, and it is already a new change. because whether we talk about technology or we talk about exposure to the world, our children know much more than we do. We have to guide them, but I think we have to learn with them and be open to becoming co-learners with them. I think in terms of subjects, we will have to, as schools, as boards, we'll have to look at what is really the need out there. Are we still significant in terms of what we teach, how we, Nancy spoke about silos. Are we still going to continue compartmentalizing subjects, or is there going to be a new approach to looking at disciplines? So while it's important to have that strong conceptual understanding of disciplines, but are the subjects that we are currently teaching, are they relevant for the life now and in future? So I think that will certainly get more attention. I think we do see our schools becoming more caring towards the environment, towards communities, and through all the discussions we've had today around SDGs, around social and emotional learning, partnerships with communities, I think it's not going to be about individualistic goals. It's going to be about how we work together as humanity. So that's hopefully going to be the future of education as well. We know that digital technologies will become more and more integral, and they will be an important part of teaching and learning. I think there will be a need to rethink assessments. And I think somewhere I go back to my experience at Cambridge, and I feel the boards really need a shake up in terms of how assessments are done and whether those assessments are really the mark of a student's progress as a holistic child. So that hopefully will take some, there'll be some changes there. I think the school industry connections, that's again a vision that it will start becoming a reality, because we, through our interactions with parents, through our interactions, through all these webinars and all, we realize that we need to have these partnerships with industries more and more. And I think finally, all of us as school educators, we know that the way we have survived and thrived in this year is through collaboration. So I think that move from competition to collaboration, I think will become a reality over the next few years. So yeah, those are, I think, my vision and hope for the future.
Thank you, ma'am. Some very valid points, and taking on from the point on industry collaborations, that is also something that we thought about a lot when we were building the school ratings that is offered by QS IGAUGE, because school and industry collaboration is still something that is not a very commonplace occurrence that you see. So that is something that needs to be a part of the future of schools, definitely. Thank you, ma'am. Hema, ma'am, your recommendations and your vision for schools.
Yeah, I think a lot of the points were covered already. What we definitely want to focus on the lessons learned from the pandemic. I think we should not forget them in a hurry. We should not ignore them, because every challenge that we face, we need to understand where it has, what are the doors it has opened up, or what are the issues that it has brought to the focus, to the front. And I think that is one exercise we would like to definitely take up once the children are back in school full-fledged, and run it as a program in the schools. What have you specifically learned? How have you changed? We send out regular surveys to children, understanding them at different stages, what they're feeling and what they're going through and how they're handling things. So that has helped us quite a bit. The second is, of course, focus on student leadership. I think the children are the future of this world, and we have to raise them up well with the right ideas and the right focus areas. And if we are able to, really impact them in that way, and the teachers have to be mentors there, they have to be the role models for our children, so that they can learn, they can understand, they can focus on the right things, and also, work around them and create plans around them so that their future looks the way they want it to. See, the work areas of the future are not defined. What we can give them are the skills. What we can give them is the creativity. What we can give them is the courage to face whatever it is out there in this world. And if we can really give them the focus to look into that and understand that, I think we have done a good job. So for us, student leadership is very, very important. We want the children to lead in every area. So when we do bring up groups and collaboration meetings, student representation is always there, because it's their school and they need to tell us what they want from here. It's not us deciding for them. It should never be that. The third thing that we are very, very focused on is compassion. I think our children are privileged to be coming to international schools. They have, the parents can afford to send them here, but there's a whole lot of society out there who's not that privileged. So I tell my students that every door that opens up for you, please ensure that you take two along with you, so that the whole community prospers and they all benefit from your learning, your understanding, your vision. And if we can, we work together. I think this pandemic has taught us that in India, what has helped us is being together, being there for each other and helping each other. So that has given us strength of character, and that is what has helped us go through the pandemic and come out fairly. I would say, yes, we've had our challenges, but fairly intact. So that's it.
Thank you, ma'am. So definitely student-centered learning and making sure that the future leaders are getting the space and are getting trained right from the beginning is something very crucial. Koel ma'am, your views on what the vision should be for the schools and recommendations for school leaders.
Yes, I think listening to all the speakers here, it's very interesting where I think we are reflecting on bigger problems of life, right? None of us told that futuristic schools are going to be, students are going to be tech savvy and it's going to be full of technology. So I think it's just the opposite, because this whole pandemic has brought alive, a very philosophical speculation over what we are doing as school leaders. And I think I really find meaning in Viktor Frankl's man's search for meaning, that, between stimulus and response, there's a space. And between how you respond uh, determines your growth and freedom. I think that's going to be the focus of school education. So resilience, grit, but within an ethical framework. So I would say that school education would increasingly focus on promoting visionary leadership, learner agency, and would contribute increasingly towards global solidarity, because that's one thing we've realized from this crisis. And the whole school curriculum will be redesigned. And in it, you will have the spirit of the sciences, maybe the rationalism of the maths, but you will have also humanities coming up very strongly, because you have to see these as areas of knowledge. We have a beautiful subject in IB called theory of knowledge. So you have to see them as areas of knowledge, not just subjects. Mindfulness is going to come in as in a big way within the curriculum, and resilience building. And I think what's going to also happen is rethinking about this physical space of the school. It's not just a classroom anymore. That's something that we've missed. What is that physical space? It's a space for collective living. It's a space for human, interaction, collective thinking. And I think that physical space of the school is really going to become really important when we go back to school. So I think these are some of the changes.
Thank you, Koel ma'am. Some very important points on how the vision of future that we have had like a few years back of very tech savvy and a very advanced, technologically tool driven kind of a vision. It's actually good to know that we are not fixated on that idea anymore, and we are also giving a lot of importance to leadership, learning, life skills, to be ready for any such challenge that comes in the future, because this is one thing that we have experienced globally. So everyone was in it together, trying to deal through it and trying to learn from each other. So thank you for your thoughts there. So we've come to the end of the session, and I'm really grateful to all of you for giving out time and coming together and sharing such valuable insights on building futuristic schools. I have definitely learned a lot from today's interaction. And although it was the final session of our knowledge series, I hope we will continue having these important discussions in the future as well. And I hope the audience has also had some key takeaways from these sessions and the series. So thank you, all of you. And for any of you in the audience also, if you've missed any of our knowledge series sessions, you can find the recordings on our YouTube channel and just hit the bell icon and subscribe to the channel. We'll keep coming back to you with more such sessions. Thank you, panelists. Thank you, audience. And until we meet again, goodbye and have a great evening.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank
Thank
you
you,
so
Prachi,
much.
for summarizing everything so well. You've been
Yeah,
a
she was spot on
wonderful.
everywhere. Well done, Prachi. Thank
Lovely
you.
to see all of
Thank
you.
you, Prachi.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.